You want to do it? You want me to start? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I would just state your name for the record and
Sure,
call it
of
to
course.
order.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Matthew Osborne. I'm the relatively new medical director at the emergency department in Thompson. This is my first meeting, and I guess I'm going to get us started off here. So that was the call to order. Second, approval of the minutes from May. This summer meeting was canceled.
You have to do it. You have to make the motion. Fiona Dumpy makes the motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, number 3 on the agenda, standing reports. Interim program agency.
Nate, you want to go first?
So the council is voting on 2 positions for vice chairs of this committee. Once that goes through, appointed positions by the council. So if any doctors are interested, then please let us know if you're interested, and I'll Jack know. There's 3 advisories on the table right now, which you can know under new business. There are one social media policy and then one for LBO candidates redirecting to other hospitals. Other people
Okay, second, FLCC Administrator Program Director.
Fall classes are up and registered. We have a light class. There's only 10 for the AEMT, but we're running it to do with that. All the other classes are up. Applications are out for the new paramedic program in January, and we will be starting the paramedic refresher and the paramedic core and such in January as well. And to turn back to the program agency, we are working on the quarterly reports. First quarter will be done the end of September. The report has to be sent by the end of October. And we've got some projects we're working on that. Nate's working on as far as trying to finish up the physician clearance package, as well as the county mutual aid plan.
Okay. Medical Director, I assume we will skip right now.
Jack's stuck on the throughway.
Okay. RSA Committee.
I'll jump on this. We had a cadaver lab training on Saturday at the Chiropractic College. Thanks to Fiona and the folks over there who put that together. We are in the process of finalizing 3 dates for 2019 for some repeat visits over to the Chiropractic College. And if we could get the folks from the RSI agencies together at the close of this meeting and maybe come up with a date for a meeting in the near future, that would be wonderful. And that's all the RSI committee has.
All right, next up, Advanced Practice Committee.
I guess I'll get to talk again. That's true. We met last Wednesday. I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago. We met and good turnout. One of the things that we did accomplish is Phillips RDT is going to be attending the November ALS committee meeting to do a demonstration on the Tempus ALS monitors that are cheaper than anything on the market and do more as far as a multi-channel monitor platform, 4-lead, 12-lead, 15-lead, NIBP, and basic monitoring, video laryngoscopy, and ultrasound, all in one device. Yeah.
Are they approved in the U.S. yet?
The monitoring is, the defibrillators are expected to be approved by Q1 of 2019, especially with the Philips BIOS RDT. That should get it through the FDA process a little faster. Their sales rep is going to be here at that meeting, however, with the possibility of discussing large quantity purchases between multiple agencies in the region, and thus driving the cost of the product down farther. The reason I had the Tempest rep come in is a lot of us haven't seen the product yet. Heard a lot about it, just haven't seen it. The other idea that we had at the ALS committee is if each agency could bring a vehicle, we'd like to do a roof shot of the vehicles of the for the ALS committee. Just a thought. We've got the big circle out here that could be done in. Another thing that came up at the ALS committee meeting is November, we're going to put some training topics in the hat, and some agencies are going to kind of go and, maybe host a training on that at their location. Serve a couple purposes, do some training on some high criticality, low incidence topics, as well as get folks out to each other's agencies and see if there could be some little bit of camaraderie built among different agencies in the region. Like, hey, this is us, this is our stuff. So maybe the first time you're seeing a new ambulance that Agency A got is not the first time you're jumping on to give them a hand. Just so there could be a little bit of collaboration between agencies to know what resources are available, who has what, and who's where, really. Jack asked us to do a little discussion to stop the bleed, which I know he's going to discuss here later today on his arrival. He also plans to discuss it at the State Council next week. I think that's it. Did I miss anything? Jim, did I miss anything that we talked about?
No, that's about it. No, philosophical discussions on the substantive.
Yep.
All right, next up, Mercy Flight.
We don't have much. October 5th, we're having an education day similar to the one that we have in Farmington out in Utica. I know it's a bit of a drive if anyone's interested. It's the Beaches Resort. I think it's more of just a venue. There's information on our Facebook and website if anybody's interested. And we're having an open house in October. Dates soon to be finalized, but that'll be out on our Facebook website as well.
Like Matt,
Nothing really.
Finger Lakes.
We were asked to deploy down south with assisted the FEMA response to Hurricane Florence. Had a truck down there since last Tuesday. And just as a reminder, whether it's a federal call-up or whether it's one of the state mobilizations, there's a group of ambulances from Texas responding. They were in a convoy. Just a reminder that when you are traveling convoy, if folks are involved in that, they really need to pay attention. One of the ambulances had to slow down a little bit. The three behind them slowed. The fifth one did not. It was a 5-ambulance chain reaction accident. It took about 5 years to start service. When you get into special operations like that, make sure you're really paying attention.
All right. Any other committees, agencies?
King David Emergency Squad. We're starting our new Explorer post. We just got approvals from everybody to start it back up, and are starting off with 5 new Explorers. We also took ownership of a brand new ambulance, 2018 Ford Trauma Hawk, 2 weeks ago, and we've, instead of having 3 crews on the daytime, now have gone up to 4 crews and positioning one of the ambulances in the town of Hopewell to be a little bit closer to some of the calls. And one other thing that we've starting to do is implement our Stop the Bleed program into our school systems with the Canandaigua School District. That Canandaigua Emergency Squad has worked with them, and we're going to start putting Stop Bleed kits within the school districts.
Anyone else? All right, on to old business. Position credentialing.
I think at this point, Nate's going to have to work with Dr. Davidoff to get that finished or assign another physician to it to get that done so we can get that off the table, because that is one of the deliverables for program agency, and we kind of got started and then kind of stopped for it, so we do need to get it done.
Okay. Social media policy.
Aircraft dispatch.
There's a draft that was sent out and here on the table.
Has everyone had a chance to review this or seen it?
That is simply a recommendation of content for each agency's own policy, not the actual policy itself.
Mr. Chairman, shouldn't we not act on supporting the recommendation?
Yes, have people had time to review this? It's essentially a recommendation to develop your own guidelines. I don't know, does this require a vote, or?
Yes.
Okay. So, motion to approve? All in favor? Opposed? Ayes, carry it. Approved.
But you're here for new business.
I got stuff in the same one lane.
Every single road, without one, that I normally travel on, is closed.
That's how I acquired my speeding ticket on the way here.
Mendon Victor, the throughway,
Right, 44 and a...
Whatever the road is,
I didn't realize I was in.
But guys, be thankful our tax dollars are going to good use. The throughway's being paid for the 4th time this summer. Who else gets that kind of service?
Just a new section.
Yeah. It's almost funny. Where we at?
Well, you can do your report, or we're on to new business.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone, and thanks for coming out. It's been a pretty busy summer. Everyone's kept pretty busy, and considering there was really not a lot of QA issues, I think everyone really did a good job this summer. So thank you very much for what you did and what you do. And sorry that I'm late. As far as what's going on, we haven't had state EMS meeting yet. That's coming up in a week or so, so I don't have a lot to report as far as that goes. We have held our first cadaver lab at New York State Chiropractic College. Thank you very much, Fiona. That was a true success. And we had a very good turnout. We hope to do that at least 2, maybe 3 times a year and get all of our RSI techs through that, and maybe even have a chance to open it up for our other paramedics as well. It's a little bit of a challenge in that the cadavers are not fresh cadavers. They're embalmed. It takes about a half hour, 40 minutes to literally work their jaw open to get moderate intubation techniques, but it's still, it was a challenge. I think that really made it even better. So that's going to turn out to be a wonderful addition to our region. Working on some IRB approvals for some of our studies to go through. I hope that with some assistance through Strong, University of Rochester, we can get that going. We've got a couple on the back burner for quite some time. We'd like to move ahead with some new stuff. Did RSI and or advanced practice talk yet?
Yes, that was Jason.
All right. Thank you guys very much for the work that you're doing and that you continue to do. And other than that, I don't have a lot to talk about, so let's move on to what, new business?
Well, we got a couple of things we'll back
Okay.
up to. AMR,
Yes.
any committee report? Yeah, anything you want to add for AMR?
Oh, no, not yet.
Okay.
We're still working on access.
Yeah, actually, after we'll check a little bit.
It's an ongoing.
Yes, it's an ongoing problem.
That's right.
An industrial site problem with that. We just gotta make sure the emails are correct. I think there's a syntax error.
Okay. We'll keep plugging ahead on that.
So we talked about the physician credentialing, getting that finished up.
Where are we at with that?
on your plate now.
Oh, I don't have a plate in front of me, but I'll find a plate, and can we talk about that and get it finished?
Yep.
Beautiful.
And then, the social media policy recommendation we just approved.
We've got actually 3 coming forward.
Right, that's the first one.
Okay.
Then we're
So-
into new business, because that
All
is
right.
old business.
Did the voting members and others hopefully maybe get a chance to see the social media protocol?
Yep,
On it.
they just voted on it.
Oh, they did vote, okay, all right, and we
So now we're-
passed that?
Yes.
Okay,
So now we're on to this.
I'm a little bit behind here.
That's okay,
Well,
we're trying to catch up.
I'm used to being behind, it's okay. Okay, so new business. Let's see. So, let's talk first about the advisory for,
LVO.
oh, we got it, no, we have it listed twice. We have 2 separate,
One's for medical control positions, and one is for providers.
okay. So let's talk about the LVO advisory for physicians. Did you folks have a chance to look at that as well? Any discussion?
We've been utilizing it, and we're not getting all the numbers that we had hoped, at least at Newark. But, you know, we feel like we're getting calls that are bypassing us, and we're not getting the calls. I'm not sure. We'd like to see the numbers, but
So do you think that providers are just taking this under their own?
no. We have a formalized process that we're doing the study.
Well, you said you're not
But
getting,
we're not getting a lot of stroke calls
Oh,
right
okay.
now. So we're wondering if people are just bypassing and not calling in for it.
So I think one of the challenges with we're referring to kind of Dr. Cushman's pilot. Okay.
Yeah.
Was that when he rolled that out initially, there was an impression by us, myself, and I think some of the other spoke hospitals that the data collection form was needed to be filled out for patients that would be bypassing spoke hospitals. That wasn't the intention of it. It was that every single stroke pre-notification, that form is filled out, which has proven to be, I don't know for you guys as well, I mean, I don't think you can get 100% compliance. A lot of the time, nursing is answering those calls and trying to get a physician, especially with single coverage. But we've had some good anecdotal successes with the bypass.
Have you bypassed some? Have you had a few calls that have come in that you've bypassed?
Yeah. I think the idea of it is good. I mean, the whole process is there's never been a pre-hospital LVO screening tool that has provided enough sensitivity and specificity, and so this was meant as a pilot to see if this screening tool, Positive Cincinnati with Gates preference, could provide that. As you mentioned, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to capture enough data to know that or not, but I think Jeremy's aware that there's been some challenges. But I think the intent is good, and I think this lays out, what we're trying to do.
have you been in touch with Jeremy at all recently?
I have, yeah.
Do they have any numbers yet that they can provide us?
I don't think enough.
Yes, I've heard too.
It'd be nice to know even the numbers that are going to their thrombectomy lab, or what kind of success rate they have. Maybe I can reach out to Jeremy, or maybe we can have one of those guys come out and talk with us in one of the future meetings.
It'd be nice to know what our numbers are for the entire region overall, so.
You mean as far as
Just
strokes
all
that originate out?
all strokes, not just, not the ones that we're treating in our hospitals as well as the ones that are going to
That
the,
should be,
it'd be
I would
interesting.
hope it's fairly easy.
I mean,
to-
it's a
Well,
pretty
AHA
good
should be
amount of
doing that.
demographic information that you have to fill out on this form.
Right.
So I think he's realizing that it's not feasible.
But just how the trauma folks are able to say this is the number of traumas that originate out of the finger intrusion, they should be able to do the same thing with strokes. I would hope, and then somebody would reach out and get some data on it.
We had one the other day that went, Tad, you had, that went to Upstate, that whoever the physician was, the med control did fill out the form. But as you can imagine, for only getting the ones that are bypassing, the whole point of this was to identify sensitivity and specificity. So you're not going to do that if every single one that we're filling out is going.
In that specific case, we moved very quickly because the person was so close to LifeNet, and took the patient over there, and LifeNet attempted to fly to Strong. Strong had 3 inbound helicopters at that point. They went to upstate instead. And the physician at Geneva said, hey, when this is all over, give me a call back. And that was great because, now relaxed, I could call and say, this is who we found, this is when we found them, this is how they presented, this is the gaze that I noted. Thank you very much. You may not be able to give the information right up front, but it was nice that she wanted to follow up.
I'll reach out to Jeremy because even without our paperwork, they should still be able to do a search. People go into the thrombectomy lab that have a rigid interference, so you look at the bypassings, which you really get some numbers. It's nice to know the total number compared to the numbers that we're filling out forms on, just so we get some sense of how well we're doing. And if Jeremy can't get that information himself, I'm sure that there's a stroke coordinator similar to the trauma coordinator.
Actually, Dr. I have a lovely relationship with the chief of neurosurgery at Strong.
Well, that sounds like a volunteer.
I'll see you.
You're tagged for that tag. That'd be great. That would really be good for all of us, I think, to get that information.
Dr. Bob,
Benish.
Yes.
Sarah Gowder, I used to work at Thompson as the stroke coordinator as well, and she used to work at Mercy Blight, so I'm sure things for her to. I know she was interested in presenting at this forum previously, Sean.
Yeah,
Has anyone else found that Apple iPhones have gone by the wayside this summer? My God, 5th one in 4 weeks, and it doesn't pay attention to me. All right. So as far as the physician side of this policy, it sounds like most physicians, at least a couple of hospitals we've got represented, seem to understand it and are trying to follow it. I don't think there's been really any pushback on that. So the next question is, as far as the providers, I know early in the project we had a couple of issues which I think are now settled down. People see from the provider side, they understand that there's a good possibility when they call us in, they're going to get diverted. It doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. Is there anything more that we need to do? Does anyone feel there's anything we need to do as a region to help get this protocol up and running even smoother than it is, or we at a point where we're doing well?
Do you think that we need to include anything in this document that is reflective of not diverting if it would take the patient outside of the window for IV thrombolytics? That was language contained within the screening document that Jeremy had. Because it is online med control always, right?
Yes, as far as the diversion is supposed to be. That was the intent of that. And that's a good question.
I mean, there are neurointensivists that will tell you, at the last stroke conference that they feel that the patient should go for, endovascular therapy initially, but all of the studies were predicated on IV thrombolytics first, and that's still within the clinical practice guidelines, which unfortunately the AHA and ASA can't put their heads together and actually figure out what they're going to do with that.
So all of those, including AHA, are really suggestions. I mean, we're not bound to follow them. Of course, if this ever came to litigation, that would be what they would fall back on. So that's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer. I guess it comes down to what the standard of care is in the region. And is the standard of care in this region, including Finger Lakes, Monroe, Livingston, I mean, we're talking western New York, is the standard of care to try and get these people to the thrombectomy lab, or is the standard of care still to get them to rapid thrombolytics? And I'm not sure, again, I even have that answer. I'm open to suggestions to try and get that answer. Matt, any thoughts?
I mean, I would be supportive of med control conversation that if you're around the corner and the patient would still be in the window for IV thrombolytics, if the patient get IV thrombolytics and then go for the vascular therapy, even if they have a positive Cincinnati and case reference. If the time to transfer is going to take them outside of the window for IV thrombolytics.
And that kind of follows the pattern we've had with our other recommendations, even for trauma and STEMIs. If the patient is that bad off, they should go to the nearest facility, be stabilized as soon as possible, and then arrange to be transferred. So I'm open to a motion to change the wording on that.
I support that too. AHA seems to be becoming more involved. Have you gotten some communications? American Heart Association, they're starting to follow numbers, not just the strokes, but the STEMIs, and looking at thrombolytics for any hospitals that are outside 40-minute transfers.
It's something else that you'll allow me to later to bring up as well. Yeah.
And so this would kind of go along with that.
I mean, the 18 guidelines were updated, right? With all of this, endovascular expanded windows, but not that they're having a disagreement on, I think, the core of the recommendations, but more some of the nuances on MRIs and some type, DVT profile, stuff like that. But there is some controversy within those guidelines as well that they still have not come back and fully updated. I don't even know if it needs to be language, just as long as the physicians, the med control physicians are aware, that that's a consultation, that's a consultative piece that takes place.
It probably, if that's what we're thinking we want this region to do, we should probably get into writing so that it's there. And not to say that it couldn't be changed at some point in the future.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
We're waiting. Any other discussion, or you want to make that as a motion?
We have three. There were two different ones. One out, one went to the provider, and one went to the physician.
Different versions.
Yes, well, same thing, because the providers, not all providers are aware of it, yeah.
Oh, so you're saying, well, but this would be we're talking about changing the physicians.
Correct.
So again, it's be up to the physician to say, how far away are you?
Right.
You're that close. Once you bring the patient here.
Is the added transfer time going to take you outside of the window for IV consideration of IV thrombolytics, would be the question. And if you were to come to my hospital, would we be able to give IV thrombolytics?
In this region, that could clearly happen. Every single one of the hospitals here has patients that are coming long distances that could meet that window coming to that local facility and be out of the window, especially if the weather's bad, they're not flying.
Another good point was just made as well. Should we just limit this to Rochester General and Strong, like Tad's recent case, upstate, or?
Well, there that comes down to not a decision by the provider, but the PIC, the pilot in command. He decides that maybe for weather he can't make Rochester, or in this case he knew that Strong was loaded up with inbound birds. And they made that decision afterwards because I had to catch up with the family and notify him, hey, he's not going Strong.
I mean, when we deal with air medical transports, that's something that we always have to keep in the back of our minds. Mechanical weather, the fact that there's only one helipad at these hospitals, or even two, and they're going to be tied up. Unfortunately, Strong can only handle 2 helicopters. Is the other helipad on the ground?
Yeah, there's nothing. They go to the airport.
So they can only handle one unless they're hot dropping off the helipad. That's a reality that we have to deal with. But unfortunately, it doesn't come up as often. So, what do you think? Do we want to add that?
Depends on how we're going to word it.
Well,
That's the next discussion.
Yeah, but if they call in, it says at your discretion as a regional medical.
You may defer
defer
to ambulance,
anything
Rochester
else.
General Strong, whichever is closer, provided that it does not take the patient outside of provided that the additional transport time does not take the patient outside of the consideration for IV thrombolytics.
and something along those lines is very short and concise, but it tells our docs to keep that in the back of their minds.
Yep.
A motion?
make a motion that we add this language for IV thrombolytic window, as stated.
A second.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion?
And then we're approving this as a whole.
With, it would be approved, so the vote would be to, if it's okay with
Addition.
your motion, that with the addition of that additional language, the paper would be approved.
Both advisory.
Yes.
Well, this is just the position one first.
All in favor?
Okay.
Anyone opposed? So the physician policy is passed with that additional language. Any further discussion on the provider advisory?
They have to call in anyways.
What's that?
Said they call in anyways.
They have to call in. It makes it, it keeps it pretty straightforward for them, as long as we get them to call in. Obviously, we were talking about some that are bypassing, but they really should be going with strokes. They need to go through the stroke center.
That's what we've discussed at our other meetings, that we need to, if they're close, they should be evaluated at the closest hospital that is.
The only thing that would change that, again, is patient preference. We do a lot of patients that request that they go to other hospitals.
Well, the other thing that changes it is the location of the call originally, because there's people that are closer to, say, Newark. So we have this at Passington all the time. Newark is technically the closer stroke center, but it's such a pain in the ass to drive halfway along 31 to be turned around to go right past the person's house to go to Rochester General. So the prudent way to go is into Strong or Rochester General, even though it's further.
And you're only talking about 5 to 10 minute different transport time. Why?
As long as they're within the thrombolytic, the IV thrombolytic, that's the big caveat to this, is that, you know, we are aggressive about giving IV thrombolytics and have good results with it, so, you know, and it probably wouldn't, depending on time of onset.
Yeah, I mean, I would generally say, or my observation is in Wayne County, that people to the west of the Newark Hospital, or anyone going along the 104 corridor, is going to go straight into Rochester General with a stroke. Calls from Woka are most likely going to go to General rather than taking a left and going down to Newark. And it's just the logistics that the time saving is not significant. Technically, they're going to a further away stroke center, but it's probably the more appropriate stroke center to go to. So there's logistical issues with that. And I mean, I've got several cases where ambulances have been turned around and actually gone right past the location that they just left 10 minutes before, because the patient's been infused at a community hospital and being rediverted to the city. It happens a lot.
Southbound on 88, and you can turn around and go back northbound on 88.
Coming down 88 and they get turned around. And I only speak for Wayne County because that's the agencies I'm responsible for. I'm sure it happens everywhere. So.
It does.
But I think the providers need to be a little more called a little more in advance. If you recognize that in the house, you should make that phone call before you leave the scene. And have a little more responsibility, and not wait until they get 20 minutes from Newark, or, you know, from Woka to 88 is a 25-minute drive, and you have a lot of time to call the hospital. So you need to be a little more.
And I agree. I mean, if you're given heads up, you're coming in with an ankle injury, you can move 5 minutes out of the hospital. If you're calling about a stroke, you really should be calling from the scene, because you know
you still got that before you get to 88 at least.
And hopefully, as time goes by with these strokes, more and more people will realize that we need to call in early. We can certainly add that.
Yeah, I mean, my observation is that people are going to the interventional centers a lot more on a primary call. Just the same way with cath lab, with STEMIs, they're not going to centers that can thrombolyze STEMIs. They're just taking them to the cath lab because these people are ending up there anyway. And I mean, that's just an observation. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That's just what I'm seeing. You got a STEMI, people are going to are not stopping at community hospitals, are going to interventional centers. I mean, a lot of the strokes are going to the interventional centers now as well.
Going in that direction, for sure.
are in that, because they're heading that direction, and
Numbers are
now,
Sorry.
Newark and RGH are in a kind of interesting position because they have access to both of these PCRs. Because anyone in Wayne County that is it's either going to Newark or it's going to General. It rarely will they. RGH gets the majority of the stroke patients. There's very few that go further to Strong.
Coming out of the 104 border.
Coming out of Wayne County. So you actually do have
Strong.
Macedon has a tendency to go to Strong, but you do have some comparable data from, so say from the Woken area, from the SOTUS area. You would be able to see that information.
Yeah, no, I think that totally, it makes sense to a certain degree. It all depends on the timing. I think, there's definitely good data for giving the IV thrombolytics, timing-wise. So if it's 5 minutes more, I understand that, especially if it's patient choice, absolutely. So I think we do have a tough, that gray zone. You can go either way, and, depending on what patient's choice is versus,
patient's choice.
And parent, the paramedic driving too, so.
I mean, the biggest influence on patient choice is paramedic influence.
Right. Yeah, no, I know.
I mean, if they say
physician influence or not,
such a hospital, you should go to Strong or General, the patients are going to go there.
Yeah.
That's the biggest single determinant.
We just want to do what's best for the patient, and that's, I think we all fall on that side. So we just want to make sure that maybe the call is being made earlier, the decisions being made earlier, so that wherever you are, you're on the road and going to the right place initially. So
and of course,
that's the whole point of the study.
Switch medical control you call.
So we could add to the providers a suggestion to contact early, and we can put possibly from the scene to avoid loss of time for thrombolytics.
Do you think that would be helpful to add to this policy?
To make them think a little bit?
I mean, we can't micromanage them.
What's a suggestion?
Yeah. It doesn't need to be protocolized, though. I guess that's,
Well, this isn't a protocol, it's just a policy advisory for them.
That's the only thing we can issue these things, right?
The only reason I think we're bringing this up to possibly add to this is that we're sitting here talking about this, saying that it is an issue. And even though we don't want to micromanage them, the reality is they're not calling early, they're calling later, and they are getting turned around. And that's not doing anyone any good. So if we can maybe kind of raise the awareness that, hey, if you call early, we won't be turning you around because you're calling early, maybe we can avoid some of that. And I agree that, I don't know, I mean, I don't want to tell them how to tie their shoelaces, but maybe we need to tell them to call early.
Going to protocol, the Collaboratives for Stroke actually has a bullet point that says notify destination hospital ASAP. Do we just reinforce that and maybe do a focus study from data over 6 months and look at if we're complying as a region or not, and look at over time and see how we do, and if there's an issue, fix it.
As soon as possible is variable.
You're having a stroke, okay, I'm going to call it.
And that's what it should be. But it seems like a lot of times it's, all right, we've got you settled in the ambulance, maybe we've got the IV started, the monitor on, we're halfway to this other hospital. This is as soon as possible today, and now we're going to turn around.
We're in the back of the ambulance and mobilizing towards a center rather than, because there are some stuff that they're going to do by protocol. They're getting BGs, they're doing EKGs, they're putting lines in, they're stabilizing their patient as they see it.
You should probably get your glucose before you call a stroke.
Absolutely.
This is more of a global conversation. Jack, is it okay if I digress a little bit into reperfusion therapy, what I was going to talk about in a second? Because I think it really plays in here. As Jamie mentioned, oftentimes we have patients, whether it's stroke or STEMI, that we feel like maybe there is preferential triage to an interventional facility. So one of the things that the Rochester Mission Lifeline has been doing is really gathering data to see, whether these patients are getting reperfusion therapy. And they've been able to get some data on EMS first medical contact to device times for STEMIs by zip code. I asked for this after the last month's meeting, which showed some pretty good median data for EMS first medical contact to device times for STEMI, which looked pretty good. But I said, if the population centers are in Rochester, of course it's going to look at the median times. That's where the large number of patients are going to be. So I asked for them to tease out by patient zip code, first medical contact to device time. There's no way to get this up, is there? No, that's okay. But, when you start getting out into the 14612, 1424, and there's kind of some data on this. I mean, we're getting out to like 100, 120, 130, 150, 180 minutes from first medical contact to device time. So that was my question: is that the science, the clinical practice guidelines, the recommendation is first medical contact to device of 90 minutes, right? So if we're not meeting that, we need to know as a region. And I think clearly in some of our area, we're not meeting those guidelines.
Can you email whatever you have?
Sure.
dsmink@flrmc.org.
So one of the things that actually Jeremy is going to be, I unfortunately can't go to the state meetings, but one of the things that he's going to be bringing to Albany next week in conjunction with his work, with all of our work with the Mission Lifeline, is that changing the wording in the collaborative protocol, whereas now for STEMI it is preferential triage to a PCI-capable hospital if the anticipated time of arrival is 90 minutes or less. I've brought this forward at this meeting in the past, but that intuitively doesn't make sense if the recommendation is that a device needs to be up in 90 minutes. If you're not going to get there in 90 minutes. So Dave has gotten some data from Yates County, and it was very clear that in Yates County, not one of the, 15 patients that we reviewed? It was like 16 in 2017 through 18. Not one had their vessel open in 90 minutes or less. So this whole idea of Mission Lifeline is identifying which spoke hospitals in the region would be better served by a reperfusion strategy for thrombolytics versus direct to PCI center. So I'm putting it out there. I don't, what do you guys, I'd like to know what you guys think, because clearly there are some patients that aren't going to be candidates for thrombolytics. All of these patients, as Jamie mentioned, whether they reperfuse or not, are going to a PCI-capable hospital eventually. But the question is that is the delay in them getting reperfused by a PCI strategy, does that warrant bringing them to a closer facility to get reperfusion with thrombolytics?
Do we think there's a need for a culture shift here? Because we've been so used to for years in the pre-hospital environment not flying strokes and MIs to a culture change of, we've always had the golden hour for trauma in our heads. Do we maybe need to explore a culture change of really time is muscle and time is brain, and have that idea of, first medical contact to arrival in a reperfusion center if it's over an hour. Maybe we need to think about our friends at...
Well, that's the wording that Jeremy's going to be bringing to the state next week, is changing from 90 minutes to 60 minutes, and not go to a spoke hospital, but then med control. So, at that point, if you don't think you can get to PCI center in 60 minutes, you're going to call me and say, well, I don't know, the patient had a head bleed last week.
So I think historically, we've done a great job of flying trauma because we, know trauma and time are important.
Yeah.
But I think there hasn't been a cultural shift yet of MI and stroke. Let's consider our medical. Let's, And
it's interesting on the cardiologists that sit on the executive committee for Mission Lifeline. Some of them give some pushback into over triage. You can tell that they feel that there should be very little amount of false positives. Whereas Jeremy brought up to them, like, we as a region have widely accepted that there's going to be a lot of over triage or trauma, and we accept that.
Why should there be a difference among services? I think trauma is widely accepted.
So keep going, a couple slides down.
Just starting with 6 hours.
So this is an interesting conversation, obviously. Years ago, I think, when we started with the different approach to STEMIs, I think we were flying more of them, and that's gotten sort of out of vogue for multiple reasons, not least of which is that the ground services don't want to give up their transports. And that's clearly a factor here. There's certain services in this region that do not like to fly patients. They don't like to give up their patients. The other issue is that we're finding more and more that particularly Blues don't want to pay those prices. And now the patients come back and they're screaming, "Thank you very much for saving my life, but how am I going to pay this bill?" And I've got several of those patients that have
an inordinate amount of time on the phone with themselves with stroke and stiffness with declination.
You know, I think this is heading in the right direction, but I think we need to get more players here at the table. Particularly, I'd like to try and get someone here from the Blues come and talk to us, and maybe let's talk to them. We can try to invite someone here for the November meeting.
Interesting dialogue.
I would love to have them sit here and talk to us with the data that we're presenting and tell us why they don't want to pay for that. And tell us to our faces instead of in a letter saying we rejected this. So maybe we could try to work on something like that. Does anyone think we are in a position now to move ahead with that sort of language, or should we get some more players and more information involved?
I think 4 players. I think we still need to get better data and moving forward. But real quick. So this was the by patient zip code, first medical contacted device time. You can kind of see it schematically here. So in the reds, is more than 90 minutes. So it's interesting that even
clustered around
Rochester, there's some. Anyway, sorry to digress, but it's an interesting conversation globally for reperfusion therapy.
No, I'm curious, some of those rides on the outer layer that are going to Strong, would they not be quicker to go to Syracuse or go to Buffalo? The ones that are on the east side there, or the ones that are on the western end, is Strong really there closer?
No, because right here is Massett. And the farthest one to the west is
So those that are ordering the throughway seem to be able to get there with no problem.
Right.
Yet 104 is not really expedited that at all.
If you go back to this line,
crossings.
does anyone know where some of those right-sided zip codes are? 14589, 145.
Come on, Diane.
if it's after M, it's 145. If it's 144, it's A to F.
Got it.
How do you know that?
Where I live up there is in field 14625, and I guess I wouldn't get reperfusion therapy in 90 minutes either.
I feel like people on the eastern end of the region, whether they work for like Lynn County ALS, I think most of them live somewhere in the middle of the county or towards the west side of the county, so they don't consider going to like Krause or upstate or reperfusion therapy or PCA. So
Matt, there's so many factors in this. You don't know what the weather is like.
Yeah.
There's so many. It's hard to draw a straight difficult comparison.
I agree. Thanks, Don.
So there's a lot of information that we don't have yet. And I guess it would be kind of tough to sit here and even talk to someone from the insurance companies without some facts. How successful are thrombectomies? I know that answer.
We do have an element of power though, because every medical director is meant to be monitoring this stuff within their agency as part of their quality control. They're meant to be looking at destination choices, transport times. That's meant to be part of the quality program that you have in an agency. And that falls directly under the umbrella of the medical director's responsibility.
But are we really making a difference by getting these people to the thrombectomy lab early? What are the outcomes from the lab? What is the 1 year rate? Are those people doing better than if they'd come and gotten thrombolytics? I don't have those numbers, and I haven't seen any real numbers published. And I'd go to bat with everything I possibly have if we could show that a year after thrombectomy versus a year after thrombolytics, these people were doing better. But if we don't know those answers, we really, you have certain
All we can do is follow the protocols that are set out as is. I mean, that's the issue, right?
Or we could push for more if we feel we're making a difference, and I'd like to know if we're making a difference.
I think Jack has a great point, and I've talked to our cardiologist about this, and when you review the science, I mean, what we have to go on right now is the 13 American Cardiology Foundation, and their statement that reperfusion therapy, pre-hospital EM, first medical contact to device 90 minutes, or intra-facility 120 minutes, which we were not doing. So most of the bespoke hospitals, when we see STEMI patients now, I would say in the region, have taken a pharmacoinvasive approach, where if we get a walk-in STEMI, we are advocating that those patients get thrombolytic therapy and then are transferred, because we were not getting them for primary PCI in 120 minutes. But I think most cardiologists will say that if you put two patients and you give them the option of getting reperfusion with lytics versus reperfusion with PCI, and they can get them at the same time, that of course they would choose PCI, and they do have some data to support better outcomes there. But the question is if you have delay in PCI of this many minutes, and then you can get reperfusion therapy with lytics much more quickly, then what is the better choice? And that I don't think is something that we're ever going to know. One of the caveats to all this is that the clinical practice guidelines are pretty firm that door to needle time needs to be in 30 minutes. So if we're going to shift our model to reperfusion therapy at spoke hospitals with thrombolytic therapy, then we need to make sure we're getting door to needle times in 30 minutes, because we may not be meeting the clinical practice guidelines there either, which isn't always easy to do. You got to identify pretty quickly. You got to rule out contraindications pretty quickly. You got to get things moving. So I think it's just a lot for the region to talk about with both stroke and STEMI. But it is something that Jeremy's going to bring forward as collaborative at the state meetings. How would that take a vote to change the verbiage in the collaborative protocols?
Well, it's going to take a stage, because it's got to go to the collaborative group first.
Yeah.
They're going to have to approve or disapprove, and then if they approve, then it has to come back to CMAX and SEMSCO.
And I think Jamie makes a great point too. I've asked both of my agencies for data, on transfers from the field to PCI centers, and trying to get some actual data. That's not as easy as it might seem, getting that data back from the PCI centers.
I mean, we're actually starting to look now at time on scene versus transport times and ratios, and we're trying to put some logic behind it, because we're getting crazy on scene times, and then they're 10 minutes from the hospital and spending an hour on scene, or I don't know what to say about that.
There was definitely a culture shift, if we're into the same terminology, years ago. Honestly, going back 25, 30 years, we got on scene, we started transport, we did what we needed to do en route, and we've seen a total change. And you're right, 30 minutes or more on scene for a 15 or 20 minute transport, that doesn't make a lot of sense, and yet we're seeing that happen every single day, and I'm not really sure where that's come from. I know there's a lot to be done, believe me, and I respect what paramedics do. You obviously know I respect that, but it needs to be done in moving ambulance, and the goal is to get these people going to the right location in a shorter period of time. We still need to maintain that, and we don't see that happen all the time.
Yeah, the challenge with doing it at the medical director level is that, we have 15 physicians just within Finger Lakes Health, and so if it's at that medical director level, then, as you mentioned, you have certain physicians that they don't care what the science is, they don't want to see the patient. So they're going to say, take them to the tertiary care center.
Well, yeah, and we've got plenty of examples, from Lions, that will call in and they'd don't worry, no, we don't do that here, keep on going, even if they would make or break windows.
We could solve that very easily.
Well,
the
culture was always, if you have an ST elevation MI and your vital signs are stable, go to the PCI center and drive past the peripheral to the community center. It's changed, but the culture of the community centers was get them to the cath lab as quick as you can. And now I'm starting to see people thrombolize more. We had a patient thrombolizing strong because we couldn't get them to the cath lab center. So, it's definitely back and forward.
Is there data with these guidelines to track first medical contact to arrival at the PCI or thrombolectomy center?
Oh, yeah, they break it.
And then the time stamp from arrival to the time they actually got therapy. So is there a delay at these facilities?
PCI centers are doing really good, like over 90% of arrival to a device in 30 minutes.
Okay. So that realistically does mean the field needs to be an hour. If the time was 30 minutes, ours has to be an hour.
Maybe used to be able to change the collateral protocols for some time. Because this is also, if this does make it to CMAC, before it gets to SEMSCO, it's going to have to go to the financial committee because they're going to look at the financial impact. And there is a financial impact because of the mileage, the hours, the crew years. This is going to be delayed significantly, I think, for changes.
Second quarter 2019 at the earliest.
2019?
Earliest.
So there's time and room for us as a region to make some changes. But I think we need some more information. Anything that anyone wants to bring forth at this point, or should we try to arrange for some more data from general and strong, and then maybe discuss it again at the next meeting?
Maybe stuck with just general strong. I know Kraus has a lot of data they give on that specifically. Every month they put a report out of the times.
Do you? I don't know how many people. Honestly, I don't have the answer. I don't know how many people would bring to Syracuse. I don't know that.
Yeah, I think it's more just the vast majority of our stroke and STEMI patients go to Rochester.
I would love to
on the data side, it's much closer to go to the Syracuse. A lot of times they don't because we aren't thinking, let's go to Syracuse. Just head out on 104, shoot down the hour drive to.
Your 89 corridor is significantly better suited than Syracuse, realistically.
Is that again?
The 89 corridor is significantly better suited than Syracuse. He said.
I mean, we could, if we're going to send out requests for data, we can certainly try to get some. If you've got a contact, we should.
Do we want to also accumulate the data that we have? Would all of our agencies here like to accumulate what we have to look at our times in our circle to help us make decisions? Because, we're looking at this very closely at Newark, trying to decide if we're going to go ahead and start with thrombolytics or STEMIs for anyone that we're transferring to walk-in STEMIs.
I think that's what we need.
So we really need to see what our numbers are locally, as well as get our referral centers to supply their numbers so we can make a best educated decision here.
We need anything, any STEMI, and then we need the first medical contact, and we need the device.
The destination hospital has access to all of the information with EMS charts. Everyone uses EMS charts now, almost universally.
Right.
So you have the ability to pull that information going back years.
The benefit to utilizing Mission Lifeline as a surrogate is they already have abstractors that are doing this.
Right. So we don't have a lot of manpower to do that.
Tying the medical record to the EMS record in the first place.
Right.
And that's the challenge.
Well, would our agencies be willing to share some of that data with us to help for patient care?
But you already have that.
We have it through EMS charts, we were saying.
But is it correlated, collected, and already vetted? What I'm saying is, it's a lot of man hours trying to look at each individual patient. So for each of us to be doing that individually.
Well, yeah, EMS charts.
Do you see what I'm saying?
So you can, it's a pretty robust system to search and abstract patients out. So you could, if you wanted patients from such and such a zip code with ST elevation noted in the first 10 minutes back paramedic, you can search for those things.
If they charted it correctly.
If they charted it.
One of the things we found with the Yates County review that Dave had done was that there was a significant amount of over triage. So when we look at those, it's going to be identification of STEMI in the field, but then when you look at it on the back end, you're going to see how many of those patients actually got PCI.
There's about half.
Now, we're talking about patient care and first medical contact, 90 minutes. Protocols are allowing for BLS to be doing 12 leads and recognizing these STEMIs. Is that something we want to venture into allowing this region to allow basics to do eventually?
To transport these patients?
To be able to, on the scene, make patient contact with that chest pain patient and do it 12-week. And recognize the STEMI 10 to 15 minutes before ALS gets there.
They're not taught to recognize them.
But if the monitor reads STEMI, no?
But they are transmittable.
Right, they're all transmittable.
Yeah.
I don't have those numbers. I don't know if we would see. If we did not look into the BLS STEMIs, how many would we be missing? Are any of those STEMIs getting transferred without ALS? I don't know. And the state doesn't track ALS, so. But I think we've bitten off enough, honestly, at this point, just dealing with the ALS. If we could get that data, we'd be ahead. Matt, do you think Mission Lifeline would do some research there?
Jeremy mentioned that he'd be glad to come down with Molly, who works with him, and maybe present a little more meat to the data.
That'd be helpful.
When's our next meeting?
November.
November 19th. Second.
3rd.
I honestly cannot be very involved with Mission Lifeline, so I've kind of lost where they're going. Are they at all interested, or have they taken on stroke, or are they strictly STEMI?
Just STEMI, yeah. They're they got a grant, and Tim Malins was involved with that, but there's not a lot of people on the executive votes every month. There was a very big presence at the initial kickoff. It's usually Tim, myself, Jeremy, Maurice Vaughn.
It's Mo, very good. Mo's a good guy to be involved with that. It's difficult, as you know, to find time.
No, it's 6 o'clock at night. I mean, it's crazy. Soccer games.
All right, where are we at?
Well, we got to step back because we talked about it with the resolution. Are we the provider on stroke? Are we adding the line suggested to contact early?
I don't know. What does everyone think?
I mean, we kind of left that conversation.
So we're in the protocols.
It says as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Is that clear enough?
Well, I'm not sure if I would say
It's not. We know we're not getting early calls. We know we're not getting early calls.
So apparently it's not getting out. It's to quote, it's not working. So should we try some different verbiage?
You want to give the provider some flexibility out there. It's easy to sit behind a wall and dictate how they're going to do things, but one paramedic is playing sometimes with a stroke patient, respiratory therapist, RN, and the infield doc at the same time. Or cell phone coverage like places in Naples or
Here's my concern. The same person that doesn't bother reading the collaborative protocols is not going to bother reading the advisory as well. I mean, that's the issue. It's that you're talking about the same person. So, I mean, you have to reach them. But whether, I mean, you can.
Should we explain to them that if they start to transport towards a stroke hospital, the decision by medical control may be to divert them to another facility? Would that get the word out? Is there some way of wording it to them?
I'll tell you how you word it. Region will be reviewing every stroke or potential stroke case to make sure that you follow the protocol.
Well, the protocol is to follow medical control.
To follow early.
How early?
You could write within 10 minutes of patient contact, attempt to reach the facility you want to go to unless you have reason documented. I mean, it still gives flexibility to provider that if they can't contact, they should write a reason, document why they didn't in the chart.
If you've got a positive severity scale or you've got escalation, you can query EMS charts at the regional level for the medical control consult time. So you can get time from arrival to the time for the medical call if you want to collect that data specifically, and you can tell people this is what we're looking at and the expectation is this.
With the wording in 10 minutes, I was thinking we could either do that, that'd be good for STEMI, for stroke. Do we want to put something in there, since we're talking about LVOs, notify med control as soon as recognition of a positive stroke scale with identifiable reversible causes, like a BG or something like that, you ruled out what else could be a stroke mimic. And, because do you really want to call a stroke alert or maybe bypass a primary stroke center for a comprehensive stroke center and you forgot to check a sugar?
And the wording is Cincinnati, all three components plus gaze preference. Do you think that's going to cause any confusion, this advisory? Do you think people will realize that, yes, it's all three components plus gaze preference?
I'm not sure the education's out there to do that. We barely have realized why just to give access.
At this point in time, and I'm just from a provider standpoint, at this point in time, there are a lot of providers out there that have not been trained on the gaze yet. And as I talked to Jack, when this first erupted, and Thompson went after a bunch of us for coming in there, there's not the training out there. So we got to put something out to them. So this is watching that 7-minute video. We've got to get something out to them. I don't care whether, Jason, you call it 10 minutes, whatever you want to call it. I had a stroke a week and a half ago with a patient. I know I do look. But the whole thing is, when we went in, we recognized it was a stroke, and I called the local facility and said, we are 5 miles out, I need a stroke alert. I had to go through 2 nurses to get a doc, because they said to me, well, we have new protocols. And I said to them, you may have protocols in the hospital, I have a protocol on the outside. Give me a doc. But I went through 2 nurses before I could get to a doc to explain I had definite stroke. Cincinnati positive, I had no gaze, we are coming to you. We are 5 miles from you. But she was on the 2nd floor with a circular stairwell that took 2 people a while to get down. So to put a limit on saying within 10 minutes you have to notify is kind of difficult to do.
I agree with that. I want to bring up that point that sometimes there's only 2 of us out there working. If I know I want to call before I get to the fork in the road where I'm going to go to hospital A, hospital B, but I may wait till we're going down the road, and that may not be in the 10 minutes because I want to use the first 10 minutes to get the patient out or do something else that gets things moving rather than take 5 minutes on the phone. And I can do that when we're going down the road.
But that would be appropriate documentation to write due to extrication of the patient.
Yeah, I like it as soon as possible. I don't like the time limit on it.
You can track the times on EMS charts.
Well, then the question is how are we going to get this education out to everyone? Again, it's not an education, it's FYI, we're as soon as possible is not working, so somehow we need to underline it and just kind of re-educate, re-notify, put it on the front burner again.
We need to make our own video.
We can pull data first by agency and by hospital notified time. Or strokes.
Which I think we need to do both. I think it'd be interesting to pull that data and present it. Maybe not every month or every quarter, but let's pull a certain period of time. Maybe if we could get that done the next week or so, maybe present to the next REMAC meeting. But I think we should put together our own video.
The one that's here is very good.
But we've got to get something out now. You can't wait until the November. These people are
I'm not talking about the data is different, but no, I think in the meantime we've got video that's already been put out, and we should utilize that as best we can. But I'd like to just try and put together our own video and throw in the other things about specifically saying that if you start towards a hospital without notifying the docs, expect you might get turned around.
We have a CIC update coming, CIC CLI update on the 29th of this month.
We discussed it then. We're clearly going to bring it up. It needs to be one of the sessions at our EMS conference in February. I think Jake needs to be getting your word out at the paramedic class almost on a regular basis, reminding people. And I think any of our EMS or EMT instructors that we have should be notified to also put the word out. Let's just blast everyone as much as we can with this information.
We need to put this on our website and our Facebook page. Because the kids are checking those things.
What do you think, Jonathan? How do we get this word out?
I was saying, I would put a class on it, or, a class under the Yeah, but invite everybody in Wayne County who wants to come. I think there should be probably 3 or 4 in-house class.
So let me throw this out. Is this a job for social media? To utilize social media?
I would stay away from that.
We're not talking about any specific patient information.
No, but we're just talking about, FYI, I think the more times you see it, the more it kind of gets ingrained, and that's, you can do the class.
I would say put it on there. Put it on your social media page, whatever it be. If you did a video, and I would have no problem helping out with that.
Jonathan and Nate, how long would it take us to get together a few people from this group and put a video up with everything we want in it? While we still have decent weather, if we want to do some filming outside. Anyone have any objections?
Do we need to be artistic, or do we need to be informative?
Both.
Yeah, informative. Yes.
We're going to need like...
It's got to look decent, but mostly it's got to be informative.
Yeah, that's great.
And what?
Okay, so back to the policy. Are we adding the sentence to the providers? Suggested to contact early, possibly from the scene, to avoid loss of time for thrombolytics to be given?
Yes.
I like that. Yeah, that's...
Because we're going to have to get this out while you guys are doing what you're doing. So, who wants to make a motion for that? Dr. Talbot?
I second.
There you go.
There we go.
Anyone opposed?
Dr. Michelin, second. So we can get those out.
All right. So, you just need to, is anyone opposed to that paper passing with that addition?
We can at least get that started.
Everyone good with it? So we get those out?
Because we'll do a snail mail and we will post to the website. We can put it on Facebook.
Nate, can you put together, I forget the program, but that calendar that goes out to people where everyone selects what times they're available to meet, and then it tells us the best time to meet. Let's try and set up a couple of possible dates where we can meet and get some bibliography going, get that thing done in a month.
I mean, we have emails, Dr. Soretta, supposedly if all of the deals or whatever, it can get slammed to them. It gets mailed as a general mailing.
It's not we don't have an effective way of getting the messages out. These things are going to the DOs. They might go up on a board. They might just sit there. It's not penetrating to the level we need to penetrate to. We have staff leasing people coming in from Monroe County, from all these other counties all the time that never see any of these things. It's not an effective system. I'd flip it around, and I've been taking a look at some social media things recently, but the kids of today are not reading pieces of paper, and they're probably not reading email. They're reading Snapchats and Instagrams, and they don't even know what Facebook is half of them. They've moved on. So we're not reaching the people. If you want to put it on the streets, you have to put it out through multiple things. Sending snail mail to a DO is not going to get to there. Some of these guys are working once a month. They're working, or they're doing an on-call shift from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. They're not getting information. So if you want to get it out, it has to go out via email, it has to go out through snail mail, it has to go to the DOs, and it has to go out on Instagram, it has to go out it has to go out on every single...
If we come up with this video, we'll put it out on every social media format we come up with. We'll put it out live on Periscope. Yeah, same emails. I mean, whatever it takes. We'll hit as many people as we can and hope word gets out. We'll just keep pounding on it as much as we can.
This kind of segues in a whole different topic, and I think it's important. How do you make REMAC relevant to all of its members and the providers? And this is a whole different topic, but with all the things that we discuss and decide here, You know, should we have a coordinated, you know, account? Does REMAC have a Twitter account? Do they have an Instagram account? You know, is somebody controlling this and getting a message out? It's probably followed only by the providers, maybe a few community members. But is this something we should discuss at another meeting, that to have a coordinated, ongoing educational effort that, you know, that all of our agencies then can retweet themselves to their own people that follow them as well, that will coordinate better? Do we want to discuss this next, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we can,
I think this applies to everything that we do.
I mean, we started, certainly some of my agencies, we started using social
I've seen
media
some good things out there,
to get our message out better. And now, I mean, we're certainly Wayne County ALS, we're routinely retweeted on GEMS now. We've managed to solidify that.
As long as we're following.
Oh, this is an agency. This is an agency. You know, a picture of an ambulance with so to speak behind it.
As long as there's no patient information.
No, but this isn't official. We're talking about, you know,
I think it was Jason's driver.
Official communications.
So, but you know, they certainly in talking to some of these social media consultants, they're not using email anymore. In fact, they're not even checking email.
So then let's put that on the agenda for the next meeting. So maybe let's set some time aside to see where we want to go. Jonathan, would you like to bring some information forward on social media since you've already started down this road?
Does Finger Lakes College have a social media marketing course, or I mean, there must be somebody doing social media in this facility. I mean, they must have their own Twitter page. I'm sure they do. Someone must be doing it.
I can't say for sure.
Can you say that word again? Say Twitter.
Not my favorite, by the way.
Further discussions upon. All right, so that the physician and provider policies are done. Where are we at? I don't. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So I wanted to bring something forward as new business. Another nationwide push is Stop the Bleeding. Mark Gestring has really been pushing this significantly across the country. A lot of other folks have. A lot of the larger groups have. It's, I think, a very simple thing to do. I think it can make a big impact on patient survival. But yet, I think most ambulances have some equipment on board. It may be part of their trauma pack. It's in a cabinet. But it's not readily accessible in a lot of vehicles. My request is that I'd like to see every vehicle, every emergency response vehicle in the 4 counties of Finger Lakes region have a Stop the Bleed kit and be designated as a Stop the Bleed vehicle with a sticker on the side that says this vehicle is equipped with a Stop the Bleed kit. We're talking minimal expense. What's that?
They're not that cheap.
You can get a decent kit for under $100. We have a CAT tourniquet, an Israeli bandage, a couple rolls of Cobain gauze, and hemostatic gauze, and a few other odds and ends, with the bag for under $100. And having contact with Boundtree will probably give a discounted price to the region on top of that. I can't think of one agency, well, I mean, certainly we're talking multiple vehicles in an agency. I don't know, I mean, Finger Lakes would be kind of expensive. You guys probably put together your own with what you already have in stock. It doesn't have to be a purchase kit. Just something that is designated a Stop the Bleed kit, just like we put EpiPens in those vehicles, AEDs, Stop the Bleed kit along with that. I'd like to be the first region in the state to do it. So.
Is there any education?
It's on you by the stickers.
Well, I thought about it.
I need the stickers because almost, I mean, every police car in Wayne County meets that criteria right now. And certainly the majority of our agencies do. I mean, that's been something
Yeah,
that
the
we
police
do
should
for
be
years.
involved.
We went out, a lot of the fire, we went out 3-4 years ago to the fire services. We did, was it 220 firefighters, over active firefighters in Wayne County, and they all got the tourniquet training as well, so they're all aware of it. The majority of them have tourniquets.
I think we're ahead of a lot of other regions. And yes, all the law enforcement vehicles, pretty rare to find a law enforcement vehicle that doesn't have
Every police officer, every sheriff in Wayne County has a stop the bleed.
and those are carrying tourniquet on their belt.
So we get stickers, we'll stick them on the cars.
Is anyone doing official Stop the Bleed training in the county?
But no, the sticker.
Stop the Bleed, do we have any Stop the Bleed trainers
Sure,
that
you
have
can be able to provide a sticker.
in Wayne County or in the 4 counties?
Ontario.
Is that something that we would want to push to all of our police agencies as well and get all of them trained? I think that's an excellent idea.
We know that
Have all of our sheriff and they all trained and
The best one now is all the law enforcement officers coming out of the academy now, they've got basic,
They're
not
getting all
first
that?
responder training, they would all be trained on the tourniquet already.
Okay.
And many of the fire departments are. It's actually sad to say, I think, that EMS is probably falling behind law enforcement and fire in that regard. Some of them have it, and even the new collaborative protocols that talk about Stop the Bleed specifically say in a bullet point, this equipment is not mandated. And that's something I'm going to bring up, that statement, that it should be mandated. You have the right to mandate that.
I think hemorrhage control tourniquets are now mandatory in the BLS bags.
On who?
I think that
And not the collaborative protocols, the BLS collaborative protocols that are coming up for discussion specifically say it's
They're
not
working on the
mandated.
religious party under to include all that.
Okay, it's not through yet.
Not through yet. That takes longer to get the protocols changed.
Anyone
Is there anybody that
have any
can,
discussion?
is there anybody that can look for grants?
We probably could hunt around. We don't really have good contact with grant writers at the level of REMAC or council.
If there's any consolation, I was talking to the Med Director for AMR nationally. He said the most stolen piece of EMS equipment now is combat amputation tourniquets. They go through more at AMR getting stolen than any other piece of equipment.
The issue there is to employ for hire. Do a one-to-one exchange with the user. We also have the BLS kit. We also have multiple patient kits and also referring to the fire. We have 6 kits and additional bands of material for those multi-patient NCI multi-patient.
Sure.
So we have a lot of terms.
Probably the single biggest thing that they did at the Boston bombings was have tourniquets.
Yeah.
And they had just issued tourniquets to Boston EMS within a short period of time before that. And that's probably what saved a lot of lives. A lot of services have opted to go that way, but again, where is the service? It's part of a trauma pack or a specific kit for Stop the Bleed.
Each individual wishes to place for themselves, as well as the BLS kit, as well as the notification kits. So,
But I think you can go to almost any sheriff's department in Ontario County, some of the other counties, reach in behind the driver's seat and find the Stop the Bleed kit, and probably find the AED in the trunk. But can you do that with an ambulance or a flight car in this region? And probably not.
Not specific kit.
And by the time you get to it, have you wasted too much time?
I had a Stop the Bleed incident, actually, on 4th of July. It was quite interesting. Responders down on Canisius Lake, and they did not have some of the material that we needed. I had a fireworks injury that I responded to. I was the next-door neighbor on the Ring of Fire, so it was quite interesting. The guy almost bled out and died right there on the side of the lake. And
if only you'd had a cat tourniquet and some trauma belts.
I had my hands, yeah. It was nuts. It was a, and actually somebody did grab a belt, but it brought up the idea too of once trying to get everybody trained, not just, EMS and all of our police, making sure that they all are going through that, but also training our public. And I think it would be another idea that REMAC can make ourselves really relevant to our communities as well, to offer this to our, once we get this organized, I'm definitely in support of kind of pushing this and maybe doing some community-wide training as well, especially in this day and age.
One of the things that I haven't mentioned to Donna
Schools is excellent. High schools.
Train the Stop the Bleed instructor course
Yes.
as part of the EMS conference coming up. It takes about 15, 20 minutes if that.
Right.
It's very simple to teach the instructors. They can go out into the public, and that can be opened up to the public to come in and take that training. If we want to get school nurses, phys ed teachers, people are seeing contact here all this. Very easily done.
Very easy to add in the end of the CPR class. Well, that's true. People are coming in these communities because they want to learn CPR to try to help.
But if they're out in the community and maybe they happen across a scene, if they don't have their own equipment, I would like them to be able to come to expect that any emergency vehicle in the region is there. They can reach in and even grab a kit. If you come on scene with your ambulance and you're overwhelmed by patients, you could send someone back to the ambulance, tell them, behind the driver's seat, here's a kit. And that person who was taking the 15-minute class can become a set of hands to help you and maybe save a life.
And a lot of it's not even just having a tourniquet. It is, you take 2 fingers and you put it here, That's the number one training with Stop the Bleed. You don't even need a tourniquet. You need to know where to put pressure.
That's blood.
And that's,
but part of that kit is too.
Right. So, but that's the part of the training.
Well, we found, unfortunately, CPR people would not do mouth to mouth. So, fortunately, we now know that's not that important.
Right.
But if we can protect them, we know they're protected, we're probably more willing to help. I throw it out there, I would love to see this region push it through as a region. I think mandating a $69 kit, which is actually a fancy kit, there's a simple kit, is a bag with a pair of gloves, a bag of thing trauma gauze, and a cat tourniquet. And you put those together. Jamie, what did you say your pricing was?
I can get a basic kit for right around $50 to $60 from Dixie. And if we buy them in bulk, I can probably get it lower.
Yeah, I mean, this in all honesty, would that be an overwhelming expense for Finger Lakes? Because I think you're probably the largest number of vehicles.
We put the kids together, I think, it's about $35.
Yeah, he's got more manpower than me.
Quantity.
And, if anybody in the region wants them, we'll give them to them at our cost.
That's very nice, thank you. I throw it out there for more discussion and.
In terms of training, I was just reaching out to RTAC and investigating them, because they put on, since they're pushing this, they also have resources for training everybody.
ProTech?
Yeah. Regional Trauma Advisory Committee.
Oh, okay.
I think they were working on that. I went down and did that training in Atlanta. We trained 500 instructors in 20 minutes. It's not really hard to do. Like I said, I think we want to try and do it at our EMS conference. Somehow we'll squeeze it in. I think I just think it's the right thing to do. At a minimal expense, I think we make a big impact with a minimal expense. Every one of my vehicles has one.
All 20?
The ones that are drivable. They don't want a cheap pickup truck. You don't have a farm. Can't go on the road. Well, I don't usually make motions. I will make a motion, and feel free to vote it down if you don't agree. I'd like to make a motion that Finger Lakes region become the first region in New York State that mandates every emergency response vehicle that is certified by New York State have a Stop the Bleed kit. Period.
So that's going to extend to all our fire departments that are first respond agencies?
Fire vehicles are not EMS certified emergency response vehicles.
They can be. As a state.
They can be, but they don't have to be.
It has a state sticker on it. so
Right.
it's-
Okay, so to clarify that, yes, would be that it has a state EMS, ESRV.
Can we guarantee the funding for this? That's my
No.
only concern.
No, we can't.
If we're mandating it,
Do we have a mandate to do it?
we're mandated to do it, we're kind of,
We mandated AEDs and EpiPens, and we didn't have any funding for that.
What's the state? State,
I don't think we're obligated to come up with funding, unfortunately. And if a service comes forward and says we can't afford it, we could discuss it. But I can't imagine someone not being able to afford $35
I
for
think
one of their
that
vehicles.
we can award agencies a designation if they follow it as a, just like your sticker, we can say that you're a preferred agency or a supportive agency, or we can have a wall where they're all recognized, or
Give them the sticker.
yeah, give them a sticker. I mean, give them all a badge, put on their shirts.
I'm not sure
I would say
that
that,
make it
I
happen.
mean, the majority of, in fact, all of my flag cars have a Stop at Leak kit, but it's not as an isolated kit. They have all the equipment with mandated that for years
Again, it's not.
as an agency, but it's not.
So if they already have the equipment, let them buy a bag for $10 or $5. Wegmans will give them the bag for free, and they can just tie a knot and tie it on the back of their.
I hate unfunded mandates.
Tie it on their bumper. We're in the wrong business if you hate unfunded mandates. That's what New York City's been doing for years.
The last thing we need is more bags.
Why is it important that we have to have a badge?
Because it needs to be readily available. And that's my concern, is that people who don't buy it very often, people who are not familiar with the ambulance, the lay person who goes to people to assist you,
they could
they
grant
don't
just,
know a Thomas pack from a Plano from a whatever. But if you tell them this is attached to the back of the driver's headrest, the only thing.
I mean, this is helpful in the mass casualty incidents. That's, where you need the layperson to grab things.
I think
that's
you're
where,
going to see across the country become
These
a
kids are
familiar object in a familiar place.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I just, in my agency, I wouldn't have any issues doing it. So it's not, we already have the stuff in separate bags now, but I guess I just have an issue, with the word mandation. I don't disagree with, your vision. I agree with it. It's just, I don't know how every other agency is doing financially, and some of them need time to get some donations, even at a cost price or whatever, and still, they didn't budget for this. They may want to bring it back to their departments and talk to them. Some may have a huge issue of even leaving their vehicles unsecured so somebody can reach in and pull something. I don't know what they're pulling out of the back seats, but whatever. I would personally go with, the region would highly recommend, and whatever agency does do it, we can all get a nice group photo of ourselves and say, this is what we're doing for our communities, and whoever doesn't do it, obviously the only day we get the nice Photoshop, and let them decide then. But it's not mandating, it's getting a group of emergency service together who can do it and go along with it.
Mr. Chairman, is your motion seconded?
No, it's not.
Why are we discussing it?
It can die right here without being seconded. And I think it's Guppy breathing right now.
Should we bring it back?
Well, to validate the discussion, I'll second the motion, so that at least that now makes it part of the record, and that the discussion we just had for the last
No, it has to
20
be voted
minutes
on.
relevant.
I believe it now has to be voted on, like it's been seconded.
Now you need to add,
So we should,
there's more
we
discussion.
have more discussion and call for a vote. Correct?
Correct.
And mandating the bag so it could be universal, or otherwise?
No.
That wasn't part of the motion.
So what's his
Same anyway.
motion, his first motion? Was it?
Is that we're the first region that we mandate every first responding vehicle have a first responder kit that's adopted lead kit.
Is separate? Did you use the word separate? Do we want, is that part of this?
I think that we...
I implied that.
It's another part of Part 800. How about we get the equipment on the vehicles first? For the vehicles that don't have it, and then we can figure out what bag to put it in afterwards. It'd be nicer that everyone has a tourniquet on their ambulance that they can apply than they don't.
So you're saying mandate the equipment, but not the kit?
I
Or wait to try and change that?
Hemorrhage control tourniquets on every ambulance, which is not happening right now. That would be step one. I mean, we just bought, how many did we buy from Acid in town?
We just bought them for every employee, so we bought about 30.
We just
So it
bought
has to
30
be
of them,
every
gave them
employee.
to the employees in a holster so they can pull them out like a gun.
So you're saying that as a region, we should mandate the equipment?
There's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't have tourniquets on every ambulance. That I would support today, right now, with an implementation date, because there's no reason that you have to have hemorrhage control tourniquets on an ambulance.
What are your feelings about hemostatic gauze?
What?
What are your feelings about hemostatic gauze?
Let's just go with the tourniquets. It's not
The problem with the gauze is it's expensive and it expires more than it's being used.
These tourniquets are everywhere.
So the protocol for hemorrhage control says, this protocol authorizes the use of hemostatic dressings and commercially manufactured tourniquets. These devices are not mandatory for any agency to stock or carry. Specific tactical application of these devices may be different. Local agency, education, and manufacturer-specific instructions may take precedence.
Is that on?
That's on the collaborative
Protocol's draft version. They are not voted on yet. Because one of my thoughts was to have that changed.
So my question is, can a patient, we spend hundreds of dollars on medications that have never been shown to work. But we have a $20 tourniquet that has been shown time and time again to work. There's a nationally recognized program to get them everywhere. Every police officer, you have no idea how hard it was to find space on the police officer's belt to get them to put a tourniquet on, but we managed to convince them to do that. Every police officer carries them, most firefighters carry them as well. Like, it would seem to me this is a super low-laying fruit. This is a bang for your buck right there for an agency. An agency's got to be crazy not to have a tourniquet on an ambulance.
I think you're going many steps beyond it, though, trying to get it so that it's also accessible to other people. When you're in a mass disaster event, you've got 2 EMTs there and 20 patients, waiting for backup. What do you do? So you want to have something more accessible to the layperson to help you. And
so a suggestion might be, why don't we put programs up for the educational piece, because you have a lot of them that are not to do this doctorally. And then we could do something, you could put out there at each of those sessions that you should have a separate one behind your seat or whatever, so that if you had a mass casualty, that they could draft it. We can, if an agency comes forward and all of their members have done their training and everything, we can put a photo up on the Facebook or whatever for all the agencies that are trained. We can get a sticker and give them for their ambulances.
We recommended that every BLS ambulance in the state of New York be able to treat pain and treat seizures, and it resulted in, I think, 3 lawsuits.
And an act of God, yes.
So I'm just not sure that recommending things to people in the
Jack,
medical
if you alter your motion to mandate the price of hemorrhage control tourniquets on an ambulance in our region, I can't see that not getting strong support.
And that follows the idea that all ALS agencies had to have the narcotics, right?
We can bring that up, we can harp that up with the ALS committee, send out emails, bring it up again, that at least every ALS ambulance has to have tourniquets. Yeah.
So what do you think would... So what would be acceptable to everyone at this point? Just the tourniquets? Or tourniquets?
I was definitely trying to...
But that's acceptable, but nothing else in that kit?
I think it's achievable.
I think part of it is having the equipment, and part of it is having the equipment readily accessible.
How many vehicles are you talking about?
How many vehicles do we have in this region? Do we even know?
Between ambulances and first response vehicles?
Rick, you got any clues?
The number down in the office.
Best guess?
No. No, not with all the consolidation.
110 monitors in the region, so based on that, we're probably talking about 300 vehicles with fire departments included.
With fire departments.
So a lot of those first responders are certified vehicles, so.
No, they're not certified. No, they don't have to be certified. In order to be certified, they've got to carry everything that a BLS bus would, and a lot of fire departments don't.
Bristol does.
I understand some of them, I'm saying not all of them.
About 10 here.
We work on 300.
I'd be happy to work with Nate in the region on having the region apply for a local grant through the foundation.
It's not a huge amount of money. Could make a pretty good
I think between some of the foundations, we can defend it at the regional level and just handle it.
Can we make a second motion? Or do we need to vote? This one's going to be good on the first.
Can I revoke my motion at this point? Still, if you vote
Not seconded.
You can amend your motion if it's acceptable for the second.
I've got a good.
Change your whole motion.
Mandate the tourniquet and highly recommend a separate full kit, separate.
And then if we do get the grants, we can just... All right, so let's amend the motion, if that's okay with... Jamie, you second it? You got it. So, we're going to mandate tourniquets in the same vehicles, those that are certified by New York State.
Mandated 4.
Who's to number 4?
It's $100.
You're going to make a second motion?
And that's what I'm asking, are we mandating a specific number or just mandating? What you did at one point. Yeah.
Well, since we're in this together, Jamie.
I never thought I'd hear that.
Is that thing running over?
Let's do a new ringtone.
All right, so,
That's the voting it, so.
folks, how many tourniquets should we mandate in a vehicle?
2.
I say.
Mandate 2, highly recommend more with a separate kit.
At minimum.
So does the one that the individual is personally carrying count?
No.
So you've got it, so all my staff carries one with them. And I'm going to have 2 more on each vehicle, in addition to the personal care.
Is this someone
Is
forget?
that reasonable?
I just don't know what I got to have.
I gotta make sure that my co-sponsor of the motion, we're not even sure will pass, is accepting.
The rational thing is, there's 4 limbs on a patient, then you should have 4 tourniquets. They can be shared out, and I don't care if it's 2 personal and 2 in the ambulance. When that ambulance rolls out, you should have 4 tourniquets available.
Then the motion is 4 tourniquets mandated. Highly recommend more and a separate kit.
Mandate 4 tourniquets.
My co-sponsors nodding yes.
Okay, they recommend the one-stop lead kit.
Oh, this could go on all day.
One-stop lead kit per vehicle.
4 tourniquets, one-stop lead kit.
No, yes? Folks, any further discussion? Anyone?
Read back the motion.
So the motion says that Finger Lakes region would be the first region in New York State to mandate that each state certified
Vehicles.
EMS certified vehicles would have 4 tourniquets in some fashion available, and highly recommend there to be a separate stop-the-bleed kit in the vehicle.
Easy accessible.
Easily accessible.
You want to put it
I know,
on the
easily
driver's
accessible.
headrest?
On the driver's headrest. Let's push that. It's been pretty standard in law enforcement. Why not make it across the boards?
Because
There's so many
these vehicles
vehicles.
don't have bulkheads immediately behind the seat.
Yeah.
And if you get in some way flies off because you mandated, the lawyer's going to
Proximity
eat
to
you
the
out.
driver's
Tell you
headrest.
that right now. If you put,
Well-grown,
you can't mandate what's in our
double-stick
cabs.
Double gum.
Because you don't want to secure it.
Sugar-free or sugar?
And if anyone disagrees, if you come to the REMAC, you can explain.
Any other discussion? Please, let's do a vote. People, raise your hand if you're in favor of this.
Thank God.
Opposed? Abstain. So, like I suggest,
Should we call the docs or what?
I think we should stop right now. I'm exhausted. All right. Thank you, folks. I am going to go. I'm just joking. I'm sorry, just joking.
Because I know how you get.
You know, I was being away from the house.
I can't help it. I know how you are.
I really think that's a step in the right direction. And thank you for entertaining it and discussing it and fine-tuning it. And I really believe in a short period of time we're going to see this as standard across the country. So hopefully we're kind of moving away from some others to maybe move in that direction. Fishers Fire Department has requested a move to ALS first responder status. Do we have their application?
No, we have to vote on it here before they
I thought they had to put the application.
have it put together.
Okay.
But we have to approve it here before they can get approved for funding to take the classes. It has to be approved
Okay, I
here.
thought the application had to
We're
get
non-transporting agency.
Correct.
Right.
They have to go through CO1.
Yes, they do, and they're in-
First response service.
Yes, they do.
But they're municipal, so they're getting municipal CO1, which means they'll get it, period.
Is it fire district or the fire department?
Fire district.
Fire district.
So they're looking to do like what Partner does, basically.
Well, they're going ILS, correct?
They're going.
AEMT. AEMT.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Sorry, yeah, can't keep track of it anymore.
But in order for them, they have 3 that are in the AEMT class now, and in order for them to be covered for reimbursement, they have to have an approval by REMAC, that REMAC supports them going up. Because the CON is covered by the council. We had to do the same thing
How
years
can
ago.
How can they bring back endorsement if they don't have an application?
That's what I was questioning. I thought they still had to submit the application.
They will have to do the CON, but in order for them, they have to prove in the CON that they're going to have people in training. So in order from what the state says, is that the same as we did years ago with when Penn Yan wanted to go up to ALS and everything else, we had to approve in REMAC that REMAC supported their move up So, and it was so noted in the minutes, so that when it came time for reimbursement, that we could get reimbursed for them.
We're not voting on the change.
We're not voting on the change, we're voting on that we support, that REMAC is supporting them to move up. Yes.
Discussion?
You need an actual motion.
No.
So from the Victor Farmington standpoint, the operations staff does approve the change. However, administratively, there's a meeting tomorrow. It's out of my hands as operations. There's a meeting tomorrow to discuss this with Fisher's Fire.
The question, would our endorsement be used in the CON application as evidence of support for CON application? Because that's something that I wouldn't want to get involved in.
I think we are just in,
They're going to say that the REMAC approves us becoming ALS, and that's CON application.
They can write it if you support it.
I thought it was just the municipal agency, but I believe REMAC also. I believe when we went to Naples did this, I believe they needed to have REMAC's endorsement. If I remember right, that was like 4 years ago.
Naples is bringing service.
Right.
They were already
It's
approved.
different though, right?
That's just getting REMAC approval to go to ALS. And ALS First Response Service starting has to go through CON.
If they want approval from REMAC, I think it's appropriate that they come to the REMAC and ask for that approval. They don't just do it in the form of a letter.
well, actually, I'm representing
Oh, you are?
them. So, I'm here.
When's the class start?
Wow.
Started the
I'm
16th.
the method director.
No, but why do they want it?
For a number of reasons, most of which is they have a fair number of paramedics and providers that want to be able to practice at the level they're trained to. That's really their biggest reason for doing it. And secondly, they cover a large area that, work side by side with Victor, but at times Victor's not available. I mean, things, volume is up, and they want to be able to provide the higher level of care when they don't have a rapidly arriving provider.
So they're planning on full narcotics and...
Not at the
AMT, so they don't need it. It's IV fluid.
First line or
And airway.
Do they plan on being able to transport with the arriving ambulance if it's not Victor Farmington or if it's a BLS?
They would be willing to do that if necessary, yeah. Well, they're pretty well staffed, so they're capable of providing a good service. And, obviously, they've got the throughway 96, Eastview Mall, that whole 96 corridor, which is kind of expanding. So.
Why aren't they going for the full level if they have the paramedics that want to be able to practice?
Their chief wanted to do a step at a time.
Okay.
And they're still going to need intercepting paramedic service anyway. Because there's so many paramedic services around them when they get to the hospital. In theory, they're in intercept anyway.
Do they currently respond at the BLS level?
They do.
Yes.
For EMS?
They respond on all calls.
Got some funky app on there.
So, Dr. Surratt, my thing to the state was to clarify the same as we had in the past. So my thing to them was to have REMAC acknowledge at the REMAC meeting on September 18th that Fishers Fire Department is in the process of stepping up to ALSFR, which would allow them the state funding reimbursement for the AEMT class that begins on September 16th. And she said, yes, that's acceptable.
So we're really endorsing their training at this point. Or are we truly endorsing the service, which...
And you're endorsing, you understand that they're looking at moving up. You're acknowledging that they are looking at moving up, and that this will allow them the state reimbursement.
Any other discussion? We don't even have a motion.
I understand the motion. I agree with the training, but just Victor Farm does not have an official letter of endorsement yet. And that's part of their CON package. Hopefully that'll be addressed Thursday. But officially, they have not endorsed them yet. The agency as a whole, working on it. I'm just saying, I know that's part of the...
Yeah, they don't need it anyway, but I know it looks good.
So I think your wording should be you're endorsing the training. It has nothing to do with whether to use it or not. You're just endorsing EMTs to take an advanced training who can use it in their own
Acknowledging that they are
process.
You could word it that you endorse it, provided that they properly apply for a first response CON and that is approved.
Is this or is that endorsing them?
This is from
I wrote this to Jean Taylor, asking her, because it was the same as we did for Penn Yan when they wanted to go up, the same for Naples when they wanted to go up.
It's transporting.
They could not, but they can't do the training, they can't get reimbursement unless they're
Naples was
approved.
different though. Naples was already had CON. They were merely moving from BLS service to ALS.
Same here.
They're it's different. They are not a certified first response service. You can only be certified service as either an ambulance transporter or an ALS first response service. They hold neither CON. They voluntarily registered as a BLS first response service, but they're not certified by the Department of Health right now.
You're registered and certified.
Naples was already certified. They didn't have to go through the CON. And the service to move, the transport service to move from BLS to ALS only needs to remain approved. That's one of the legal differences in your situation.
Sir.
Yeah. Ken just said that they're not certified first responders. Excuse me, BLS?
They are BLS response agents. BLS first
response is not certified in New York. It's registered.
So the state's aware that they are there. They voluntarily do charting and submit, but they are
There's no
not.
certificate to operate issued by the Department of Health to BLS service.
Okay, so they want to move up.
They want to move up a level, yes.
So why don't you endorse the training with the goal of moving up to a certified ALS response? You're endorsing their training with the intent to move up.
And that's what I was hoping that this group would do today.
And you put that pending their application for approval.
I'm not going to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that the MEMAC support the training component that's been mentioned, but it reflects no support or positive or negative for the CY application. So that's the qualifier. I support the training. I'm always going to support the training in any agency to get additional training into the hands of providers. But right now, we can't get involved in the CY process because that's not what we do here.
Outside the remand.
It's outside the purview of the remand.
Second.
Any other discussion? Vote. Hands, please. In favor? Opposed? And abstaining. All right, so it's passed for them to obtain the funding and the training.
Yep.
And then the rest of the CON is between them and the council and the state.
Yep.
What else do we have? What is this?
We put that in because I didn't know if we had anything.
Oh, yeah, nothing else. Does anyone have any new business they want to bring forward? All right, super. If not, we're going to adjourn.
Does everyone sign the attendance sheet?
November 19th. And the committee is going to meet after REMAC on the 19th. That's the 20th, right?
Motion to adjourn, please.
Thank you.
I have to sign in downstairs.
That's 30 seconds. Yeah.